The subclasses chosen by your player characters help to tell the story of your campaign world. For example, if your character is a Horizon Walker Ranger, it suggests that portals to other planes of existence must exist and even be somewhat common within your shared world. On the other hand, the subclasses presented in Grim Hollow the Player's Guide help tell dark fantasy tales where magic is more grounded and likely more dangerous. My name is Ben Byrne, and these are the experts from Etheris. So the Highway Rider roguish archetype is one of the mechanically strongest and most thematic gunslingers that I've ever seen introduced into 5e. And what makes it so good is the hair trigger ability at 3rd level, which allows you to use your reaction when initiative is rolled to take one of the following actions. You can make an attack with advantage on the attack roll, move without provoking opportunity attacks, or use an item or interact with an object, or you can take the dodge action. Thematically, this represents your character's unmatched agility in a standoff. While the bugbear is still reaching for its sword, your gun is in your hand ready to fire. Getting a free sneak attack at the start of combat gives you and your party a huge amount of essentially free damage at the beginning of most battles. You can instantly pick off an enemy to reduce their numbers, or blast off 10 or 20% of a big bad's hit points while they're still doing their sort of start of combat pose. And because this is a reaction at the point when initiative is rolled, there's almost no way to avoid this for the GM. It doesn't really matter how high your opponent's initiative is. This is incredibly fun and of course makes you feel like a hardened quick draw. The Highway Rider also gets a trusty mount at 3rd level, which enables you to cast Find Steed once per day to ensure your faithful companion is always near. Also at 3rd level, you can now use sneak attack on any turn that you move at least 20 feet. This encourages you to stay mobile and keep a distance from your enemy. In this way, the Highway Rider is kind of like an inverse of the Swashbuckler. The Swashbuckler wants to get sneak attack by single-handedly dueling their enemy in melee. The Highway Rider wants to stay safely out of melee and avoid potentially getting locked down with opportunity attacks, making better use of ranged weapons. Clearly, the Highway Rider is perfect for playing a hard-bitten gunpowder outlaw or bounty hunter, whose name is feared in taverns and saloons across the realm. Alternatively, you might also want to play a ranged assassin wielding a longbow or hand crossbow, always moving inside of the shadows. Though it doesn't auto-crit, hair trigger can be a much more reliable ability than the assassin subclass's 3rd level ability, because hair trigger doesn't require a surprise round to function. It's also an attack in addition to your first turn, meaning when you do have surprise, you could sneak attack up to 3 times before your opponent has a chance to react. You are bad news, baby! The Misfortune Bringer is a roguish archetype that does kind of what it says on the tin. It makes everyone else's day miserably ill-fated. It's weird, but any monster or NPC that pisses you off just seems to fall over their own feet, clumsily miss attacks, or just become inextricably afraid. At 3rd level, you gain the Evil Eye ability, enabling you to curse a creature as a bonus action on your turn. You always get sneak attack against a cursed creature, provided the attack roll doesn't have disadvantage, of course, and you can move the curse to other creatures pretty much as you like. But also at 3rd level, you gain the ability to cast Misfortunes on the cursed enemies. These extra effects, such as Curse of the Clumsy, can cause your opponent to fall prone and have 0 movement speed if they attempt to move during their turn. Or you can increase your chances of scoring a critical hit with Curse of the Maimed. These curses are cast using Jinx points, which you have 4 of at 3rd level and regain on a short rest, and from 13th level you'll have 6 of them to use. But at 9th level, you gain the ability to steal luck, taking advantage away from a roll that a creature is making within 30 feet of you. If you do this, you regain a Jinx point. And that luck can be stolen from allies as well, allowing you to pilfer more from your fellow party members than just their valuables. Misfortune Bringer's magic is more insidious, more subtle than an arcane trickster, and therefore more suited to a dark fantasy campaign. Your magic isn't overt, but folk are still unnerved by you. Play a Misfortune Bringer if you want high damage and simple mechanics without worrying about bookkeeping spells, but you still want your rogue to have a mystical vibe. Did you learn your magic from a mother hag, a book of dark secrets, or were you simply born under a bad sign?
What you do not smell is called iocane powder. It is odorless, tasteless, dissolves instantly in liquid, and is among the more deadly poisons known to man.
The Green Reaper Ranger is the master of poisons, harvesting ingredients from venomous critters and toxic plants to add to their poisonous kit. At 3rd level, you can make attacks envenomed using a bonus action, and subsequently dealing 1d4 poison damage with each attack for up to a minute. At 3rd level, you also gain Toxic Tradecraft, allowing you to spend a spell slot when you hit with an envenomed attack for an additional fairly devastating effect. I mean, firstly, all envenomed attacks enhanced with Toxic Tradecraft deal a bonus 1d6 poison damage in addition to the 1d4 poison damage already dealt by envenomed attacks. But additionally, the target creature is also poisoned until the end of your next turn with no associated saving throw whatsoever. So this subclass isn't just about raw damage like the Hunter subclass can be, but also inflicting debuffs, such as forcing your poisoned opponents to make attacks with disadvantage. If you spend a 1st level spell slot to use Toxic Tradecraft, you can add an additional effect, such as robbing a creature of the ability to speak, and therefore robbing them of the ability to cast spells with verbal components. If you used a 2nd level spell slot, you can stop a creature from being able to regain hit points, which is very useful when fighting against enemies such as trolls, vampires, or hydras. Now, I know what you're thinking as I say that actually with vampires. Poison damage and the poison condition are very common resistances and immunities for particularly undead monsters, elementals, constructs, celestials, and fiends, and probably a few others scattered in there. But there are tools to deal with that, including certain toxins in your toolkit that remove such resistances and immunities. At 11th level, your envenomed attacks bonus damage increases to 2d4 instead of 1d4, and you can actually deal your choice of acid or necrotic damage instead of poison. You also have your typical ranger spells at your fingertips as well, allowing you to flex away from using poisons for an encounter if you need to. Nevertheless, this is a really flavoursome subclass if you want to really emphasize the poisonous skills of a master assassin. Or your character might be a wilderness explorer capable of demonstrating the most dangerous parts of the natural world to transgressors. Did you play Dishonored and watch in glee as a rat swarm eviscerated a cadaver in seconds? Were you enraptured by stories of the Pied Piper as a child? Then the Vermin Lord might be the perfect ranger archetype for you, who leads a swarm of rats into combat like a shepherd of filth. At 3rd level, you can spend a spell slot to summon a swarm of vermin to assist you in battle, each of which can deal 2d6 plus 1 damage with their nibbling attacks. But the real strength of the Vermin Lord is its Septic Strikes, another 3rd level ability which causes wounds dealt by you and your swarms to painfully fester on your enemies. As a bonus action on your turn, each creature within 60 feet of you that you or your swarms have hit with an attack takes an additional 1d4 necrotic damage. This encourages you to summon multiple swarms using higher level spell slots and then spread out your damage to affect as many enemies as possible. In this way, you sort of slowly leech your enemies of strength, like a spreading, gnawing disease. Thematically, the Vermin Lord isn't dissimilar to a Swarm Keeper from Tasha's Cauldron, but with a definitively dark fantasy twist. The Swarm Keeper can be surrounded by birds, butterflies, or fairies, and most of its subclass features are really focused on battlefield control through movement, either moving the enemy or moving themselves. The Vermin Lord is grimier and more horrific, Your swarms can also act more independently from you, and in theory, complete tasks outside of combat. You can also communicate effortlessly with any rat or rodent-like creature that you come across, meaning that your connection with the disgusting critters still has utility even if you don't want to summon an entire swarm. Vermin Lords make for fantastic urban rangers, especially if your campaign is set in a city sewers or slum. And you could play as a foul and feared presence whose skittering vermin forewarn you're coming. Or you could play as a lovable street kid ready to save the world with rats. After all,
rats are the lowliest and most despised of all creatures, my love. If they have purpose, so do we all.
Speaking of expert subclasses, there will of course be more included in the Ethereal Expanse setting guide. The Ethereal Expanse is a new campaign setting from Ghostfire Gaming, set upon a magical sea of starlight with endless portals to other realms to explore. There will be new subclasses included like the Ranger archetype, the Expanse Wayfinder, who are experts at navigating the enchanted etheric seas. The Kickstarter is on right now, and there are more subclasses to unlock via the stretch goals, so you can set sail by hitting the link up here or down in the description. And speaking of bards and arcane experts, we're splitting this video into two parts because there are a few more experts to cover than warriors, mages, or priests. That is if you include the Grim Hollow take on the Artificer and Etheris's own Monster Hunter. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and join our Dark Fantasy campaign for next week's video on the Experts Part 2. In the meanwhile, you can check out this video up here about the Grim Hollow warrior subclasses, including the Barbarian, Fighter, and Monk, or you can get a taste of the arcane in this video about featuring the dark art of necromancy in your 5e campaign.